I got trapped inside my own childhood home during a power outage, and no matter which door I tried, I kept ending up back in the same hallway, walking past the same closed bedroom door I hadn't been able to make myself open in over 20 years. If a story like that gets under your skin, hit subscribe, because I still don't fully understand what happened to me that night, or why that house seemed to know exactly which door I was avoiding. I inherited my childhood home from my parents a few years back after they passed, and rather than sell it right away, I decided to spend some time there alone first, mostly to sort through decades of belongings before deciding what to do with the property long term. It was a modest house, nothing especially large, a single hallway upstairs connecting 4 bedrooms, one of which had belonged to my younger sister, who died in an accident when we were both kids. An accident I've never been able to talk about easily, even decades later, even with people closest to me. That bedroom had been kept essentially untouched since her death, something my parents never explicitly discussed but which became an unspoken rule in our house for as long as I lived there. I hadn't opened that door myself, not once, in all the years since. When I moved back in temporarily to handle the estate, I told myself I'd eventually work up to dealing with that room, though I kept quietly putting it off week after week, finding excuses to sort through literally everything else in the house first. One night, a severe storm rolled through the area and knocked out power to the whole house around 11. I wasn't especially worried at first. These outages happened occasionally growing up, and I knew where the flashlights and candles were kept. What unsettled me initially was simply how disorienting the house felt in complete darkness, familiar in daylight, but genuinely difficult to navigate once every usual visual reference point was gone. I made my way upstairs with a flashlight to grab an extra blanket from the hall closet and reached what I assumed was the top of the stairs, only to find myself facing that same closed bedroom door instead of the closet I expected. Confused, I turned back toward what should have been the stairwell behind me and found only more hallway, stretching toward what appeared to be the same door again, viewed from a slightly different angle. I told myself, reasonably enough at the time, that the darkness and stress of the storm were simply disorienting me more than I wanted to admit, and I carefully retraced my steps, counting doorways this time to keep myself oriented. I passed what should have been my old bedroom, my parents' room, the bathroom, each confirmed by touch and familiar shape in the dark, and arrived, once again, at that same closed door. Despite having counted every other room along the way correctly, this happened, by my own increasingly panicked count, 4 separate times over what felt like an unreasonably long stretch of time, though when I finally checked my phone afterward, barely 20 minutes had actually passed. Each time, I found myself facing that same door, and each time, I turned back rather than touching the handle, my hand hovering closer to it with every attempt without me consciously deciding to let it get that close. On what I've since told myself was simply my mind's own doing rather than anything about the house itself, I heard, very faintly, something that sounded almost like my sister's laugh, the specific way she used to laugh as a kid, coming from beyond that door. I stood frozen in the dark for what felt like a very long time, and then, without fully deciding to, I finally reached out and opened it. Behind the door was exactly what I should have expected. An ordinary, dusty, untouched childhood bedroom, exactly as it had been left decades earlier. Nothing more, nothing supernatural waiting inside, no version of my sister, nothing except the quiet, mundane reality of a room frozen in time. The power came back on moments later, and the rest of the house, when I checked, was exactly as it should have been. No more strange hallway loops, no further disorientation. I've never gotten a real explanation for those 20 minutes, and I've mostly settled on believing it was some combination of grief, stress, and the genuine disorientation of total darkness in a familiar space that suddenly didn't behave the way I expected it to. But some part of me has never fully let go of the sense that the house, or something in it, understood exactly which door I'd spent over 20 years avoiding, and simply wasn't going to let me leave until I finally walked through it. I've made peace with not fully understanding what happened, and I try to believe that sometimes the hardest doors we avoid opening eventually find their own quiet way of asking to be opened, whether we're ready or not. If a place from your own past has ever seemed to know exactly what you were avoiding, tell us about it in the comments. We read every one.